upsets me. So that is what I would want to advocate for people to do. I will also say in my therapy experience that I also think this is proliferating in the professional community, because I went to therapy during COVID with my father, who was quite abusive towards me. And long story short, our fight kind of coalesced around college and him not paying for college. And he says, I always would have paid, except he moved out of the house and left him out of my life because he didn't pay. But the therapist was sitting there, well, you need to acknowledge Bill's emotions. And well, it's great if Bill says he felt he would have paid. But the fact of the matter is that he did it. And it left me in steep financial striations that impacted my 20s and into the modern day and had its own cyclical effect. So these are just very problematic behaviors. These principles also offend me for very deeply held social justice values. And I will use the example of the Colorado wedding cake, using the principles of toxic therapy culture, and you can see that wedding cake winner. He didn't harm the gay people. He just drew a boundary and said, I'm not going to make you a wedding cake. But raise your hand if you think that's problematic. All right, some people think being against gay people is bad. But what did he do wrong according to these principles? Nothing. All he did was draw a boundary. He didn't need to explain himself. His emotions are inherently valid. And trust me when I say that conservative Christians are going to therapy, this is what their therapists are. And that's the reason why I find these values to be deeply problematic. They're essentially just a floating signifier that you can define. But thank you for listening.
Sean, thank you so much for sharing with our community. If you are a member and would like to share opening words, we will happily get you on the schedule. You can contact the platform speakers team at their email address, platformteam@ethicalstl.org. I hope you will take advantage of the opportunity to share about your skills. Please join me in welcoming Patrick back on stage for his Thank you again, Patrick. That was delightful. Before our main address, we'd like to take a moment to still our minds, relax our bodies, and take some mindful deep breaths. Please join me for 1 minute of mindful breathing. Our platform address today features Dr. Kyle Reyes. Dr. Reyes serves as Vice President of Institutional Advancement at Utah Valley University. During his nearly 22 years at UVU, Kyle has served as VP of Student Affairs, Senior Inclusion Officer, and Chief of Staff to the President. Dr. Reyes is also a tenured Associate Professor of Education. He is the author of the best-selling book, Lenses of Humanity: How Reflection, Connection, and Empathy Can Change Our World. Kyle has given more than 800 presentations in 36 states on issues of cultural competence, leadership, and transformative learning. Dr. Reyes serves on national and state boards. Please help me extend a warm welcome to Kyle, who joins us via Zoom today.
Well, look, thank you. I am hoping my audio is coming through. Give me one moment here as I get things situated. Well, look, again, I hope my audio is coming through. Normally, I'd like to be there to just feel the energy in the room, so to speak, but so grateful that you've all invited me to just share a few thoughts about some of my passions and everything that I've been working on and dedicated my career to. Let me go ahead and share some slides, and then we will get right into it, as I want to just share some things that I think align with what you all stand for and what you're all gathering for today to reinforce. As was mentioned, my remarks today, my brief remarks around this book and my research and around lenses of humanity. Now, I'm from Los Angeles originally. You can see this list here of just some of my more interesting bio, because this is the stuff that humanizes me. But you'll notice here just a diverse range of experiences, from failing out of college a number of times, being a graffiti and street artist, having a diverse cultural background, Filipino, Hawaiian, Japanese, and then my partner, my wife, is from the Navajo Nation. So within our own home here in Utah, we have been really trying to be intentional about cultural awareness, cultural competence. And I'll tell you, in this world that we live in right now, I get the question often. I've been working in higher education for 22 years, and I get the question often, why am I so focused on continuing the work of cultural competence and cultural understanding? The way that the world is going around issues of diversity has been quite polarizing. And over the past 5 years, I have really tried to reframe this work not as some political agenda, but really as a work around remembering who we are as human beings. And it's a work rooted in what I believe to be just a really spiritual effort around understanding one another's humanity. So my research efforts began, I will say, over a decade ago, but in this particular effort to understand a greater understanding of humanity, it was 6 years ago that I began this pursuit of understanding this question. And the question is this: when people join a new community, and that community is broadly defined, what do we yearn for as human beings? When I move into a new neighborhood, when I'm considering a new job and an organization, when I join a new congregation, when my kids go to an elementary school, anytime we join a new community, what do we yearn for? And we may not even be able to articulate it, but my findings showed that they could be thematically lumped together in these areas: safety and stability, connection and belonging, and purpose and meaning. Now, for all of you in the room there and online, this is pretty intuitive, and yet it's interesting because I think we miss that if this is at our core what we yearn for, every time we step into a new community, a new group, a new space, then what's our sense of responsibility? What's the inverse of that on how we help others who are joining various communities? And so working at a university, it's very important for me to consider when a student walks onto our campus for the very first time, is there something we can do to be intentional about recognizing their humanity and seeing what we can do to show up for them in a better way? And so my thesis of the book is that statement you see at the bottom: our humanity is found in our ability to facilitate the pursuit of these goals with others. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a 3 to 4 minute treatment of each of the 4 lenses of humanity. And again, please know that I recognize this is all a work in progress. You can definitely reach out to me afterwards and take issue with maybe how I frame one of these, but please know that this comes from a place of a real deep exploration, where I just, at the end of the day, want my own children, want the next generation, want all of us to just be a bit more kind and compassionate, and to take a step back and not be filled with such vitriol as our world feeds us today. So the first lens is this, and by the way, the book is structured in such a way where there's 3 chapters per lens. There's the theoretical underpinning, there's examples of stories, and then there's the practical application. And so I wanted to make sure that these were accessible to the masses. Humanity-driven people engage in ongoing self-analysis, reflection, and lens checking. And this all begins in this idea of that how our brains are wired. And there's many of you that are listening to this who have probably studied and quite extensively studied how the brain works. That might even be your area of expertise, way more than me. But let me just explain at a very base level, where some of this coding begins. While we're still in the womb, we are starting to develop synaptic connections, okay, mostly auditory. But as we're born, we then, through all of our senses, start to create anchor data, anchor synaptic connections that become our roadways by which we process everything that we experience in our lives. So what happens then is over time we develop these codes, and let me take you to an example. One quick story. My daughter, my youngest daughter, she was born January 4th, 2017. And so at the hospital, at Intermountain Health, they gave us a pamphlet that said, hey, this is our protocol here at Intermountain Health. After the baby is born, you're going to cut the umbilical cord, Mr. Reyes, and then we will take, with our rubber gloves on, we won't touch the baby. We will take the infant child and place her on Michelle's upper chest for that immediate skin-to-skin connection. Instead of the old protocol, which we would take the baby to the warming station, clean the baby, measure the baby and all that stuff while we're cleaning up the mother. Instead of doing that, we will immediately place the naked infant child on the mother's skin because of our research on that coding, that imprint. And so what we're talking about here are significant codes that we don't even know that we've been gathering our whole lives. We are social scientists. By the way, that's a photo of my daughter now. That was probably about a year ago, but she's developing codes of belonging. She's developing codes of safety, love. You can see the list here. Talents, identity, and connection. Oh, and by the way, she's gathering these codes everywhere she goes. She goes to elementary school, or she'll go to some religious congregation or a community event, or she'll go to some activity wherein she's always testing her sense of place and value based on silly comments, right? She'll wear her hair a certain way, and then somebody will laugh at her. And immediately, a code is in her brain. I don't want to wear my hair that way again because I felt bad when they made fun of me. Now, over time, you can imagine, I'm a son of an educator. My mom was in Los Angeles Unified School District educator for 40 years. And I watched her as she just agonized on ways to reach young people in more relevant and more authentic ways. And what's interesting is, education is an emotional exercise. I know we believe that education is an intellectual exercise, and by all means, as an educator, it is. But let's not forget that the socialization of education, the settings in which we learn, whether it's in the home or in a school setting, we learn from people that we believe like us, that we believe are invested in us. And so these codes continue on throughout our lives. And in fact, everyone in that room, you've all developed codes that started from your early childhood. And some of those you're aware of, and others we may not be aware of. And I love this quote from Anais Nin: "We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are." We can all observe the same exact outcome or objective event, right? And walk away with very, very different interpretations, energy, feelings around the exact same event. Not because the event was different for everybody, but because of our coded lenses, of the way that we have filtered that experience through past trauma, through past wins and victories and celebrations and validation. And so what's interesting to me is, how can we as human beings, if we're going to make authentic connections with others and invite that and recognize their humanity, we need to do a better job at unpacking how and why we see the things the way we do. And today I won't go into all the exercises that are in the book, but I think it's, let me give you an example. If I were there with you, I would ask you to raise your hand if you're left-handed. Now, again, you don't have to do that, but just in your mind, if you're left-handed, pretend you're raising your hand right now. And then I would say, everybody that's left-handed, I'm talking to you right now. How do you know you're living in a right-handed world? And so a number of things would come up, right? And so if you're sitting there, you might just nod, and the people around you can see if you're nodding. Left-handers, you know you're living in a right-handed world. Mostly you learned this when you were in elementary school or some early childhood experience with scissors. And then later on, that little wooden desk that would come up where you can rest your arm to write. Or that 3-ring binder where it's tough to write on it because your finger, your hand is resting on the 3 rings. Or the dry erase board. Or where you sit at a restaurant. Or athletic equipment. Or can openers. And I can go on and on and on. Here's the thing. I don't think we've had to process our right-handedness in this world to navigate the world. I think we've had the privilege of being right-handed, and I know I just said a controversial word there, but stay with me for a second. I think that when you don't have to think about your identity, you don't have to think about your physical situation to navigate the world around you, then you are privileged to not have to have spent any emotional, psychological, or physical energy wondering how to do something. And so what's interesting is, if you have a pen or a pencil, if you put it in your right hand, you can read the words that are on the pen or pencil. You switch it to your left hand, it's backwards for every single pen or pencil. Now, manufacturers know that this is effective because the majority of us are right-handed, but my point is this. There are parts of us where all of us have some form of privilege, and we also all don't have privilege, where we're in the majority in some identities and in the minority in other identities. And for me, it's not a matter of pointing out who has it and who doesn't. For the inner lens development for humanity, it's let me just own the things that I don't know, and let me get more exposure and understand that somebody else's lived experience, they may not have had the thing, because they're not in the norm, they're not in the majority. And I just didn't realize that. And obviously I use this example because no one has ever, come up to me after a presentation and said, no, I earned my left-handedness, or I earned my right-handedness. Kyle, don't be so critical. And again, I'm not saying you're a bad person if you're right-handed, right? And I'm not saying you're a bad person if you're in the majority of an identity. But unless we really start to unpack and realize that everybody around us hasn't had that same experience, we may lose opportunities to connect, which takes us to the next lens. And that's really continuing to build out and study and engage with diversity of history, thought, and perspective. And so these next 3 chapters of the book around the context lens explores why it's so important for us to do the work of getting more context with those around us. And especially as a professor, as a teacher, as somebody who wants to prepare my students who are in the School of Education to go out and be teachers, I want them to understand that their view of the world is nested in all of this stuff, and they can make greater authentic connections if they recognize the context of other people. Now, I won't go into all of this because it would take too much time, but Danger of a Single Story is one of my favorite TED Talks ever. Please take note of it. It's worth your 19 minutes. And Chimamanda Adichie, who's now best-selling author of 8 different short story books and a number of other things, but has one of the most watched TED Talks in history, Danger of a Single Story. I won't steal all the thunder of the TED Talk, but her thesis is simply this: in the absence of exposure to diversity, our brain is hardwired to default to the single story about the other, about people who are different than us, about people who don't look at the world the same way we do. Because in the absence of exposure to that, engagement with that, our brain has to operate on efficiency. And so there's a danger there. And one of the ways that I invite people to consider leaning into this context development is through something I call healthy dissonance. Now, where did healthy dissonance come from? I'm a fan of musicals. And one of my favorite musicals, because it was one of the early ones I was exposed to as a child, was Leonard Bernstein's score of West Side Story. And you know this musical well, this Forbidden Love musical, and the entire story is around tension. So what did Leonard Bernstein do? He composed this score around what's called the devil's chord. And the devil's chord is essentially a pairing of sharps and flats that created tension throughout the whole musical. And you know this, right? There's a melody going along, dun, 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 bum, bum, and then it just continues on, and there's always, the audience is always on edge and a bit unsettled because that matches the storyline. Now, for those who study music, those who are musicians, those who understand music theory, you know that dissonance adds an actual healthy dynamic to a composition. Why? Because the audience perks up, the audience listens, the audience isn't lulled into sort of just a melody. Again, melodies are beautiful, but it invites the audience to engage more because we're seeking resolution when we hear a dissonant chord. Naturally, as humans, we want that to resolve. And so what happens then when we have exposure to difference? When we have that moment in our melodic life, or maybe our life is never melodic, but just go with me on this. If we are in a sense of comfort zone and all of a sudden somebody gives an idea that jars us, that has us actually, our blood pressure going up because we just want to win this debate, whether it's an exposure to a different idea or a different way of life, what it might be, we have an option. We have a couple of options. And what I try to teach my students is, remember, the goal here is not consensus. You don't have to vote with the person you're talking to, meaning you don't have to vote for the same person when you're in the middle of a debate and try to achieve where everybody is thinking the same way. What we're trying to achieve is understanding. And we have to recognize that growth comes at the edge of our comfort zone. And so in that regard, we need to engage. And so the invitation for this is truly to engage with difference. And again, in the spirit of just jumping forward here, you're going to see a lot of slides tied to a program we did at the university where we took graffiti artists who had juvenile records and we put their artwork in our University Museum of Art. And we introduce the community to the concept that this is actual art. And this is not just vandalism like they thought, or even vandalism at all, but it could be something that was beautiful. And so these artists were showcasing their art, and a lot of scripts were being flipped at that time. Young people, police officers, community members, they gathered as we saw their artwork and reframed and gave them a new context about who these young men were. Of the 8 that had juvenile records, 6 received bachelor's degrees from Utah Valley University, 2 in the honors program. Our university president at the time is in the back there. So the context matters, and again, empathy, as I begin the wrap up here, the empathy lens, I'm going to treat this very quickly. It's one of my it's one of my 4 favorite lenses. No, but this is where, let me just give you the concepts. And these will be intuitive to you, but I hope that if you do pick up the Audible or the book, that you will dive deep into each of these concepts, because when we are trying to humanize our communication with one another, there's a lot of work to be done and practice around the notion of cultural humility, or the genuine belief that you can learn from someone even if they disagree with you. The notion of courageous empathy, that we can empathize with those that might look at the world the way that we do, but can we actually empathize in terms of a sense of pain and hurt with those who really don't agree with us on many issues? Genuine inquiry is where and the word genuine is powerful there, because when we ask questions, are they coming from a place where we're seeking to understand? And this also has found to be one of the greatest de-escalation tools and methods, to just seek more context and then show empathy, and then really recognize that we as human beings can evolve. Words matter. Pronouns matter. The way that we refer to ourselves matters, and then the way that we refer to us matters to others matters to them as well. And finally, the community lens. My argument stems from a piece of art that I did called 3 Canoes. The short story here is I did this art piece representing the cultures within my own home, Pacific Islander and Navajo cultures. And the argument here when I was talking at a conference was, my kids sit in that middle canoe, because no matter what they gravitate towards in life, whatever identities they gravitate towards, somebody always came before them, and somebody always will come after them. And so my sense of community building in terms of a lens of humanity is build community with those who came before you, those who are with you, and those who are following you. And again, each of these is a bullet point of some of the stories. And that last one, what are your thank you cards? I'm telling you, there's just something palpable about sharing gratitude that lifts humanity, especially with those who might have been retired, or people that are our parents or grandparents who just think that everybody forgot about them. My thank you cards, I design people's shoes. I design custom shoes I've done this about 70 people now. And I will study their life. I will study the patterns and symbols that connect us. I will study a symbol that represents what they have meant to me. And then it becomes art therapy for me. As somebody who needs to be doing art to focus, I have found this to be a great way for me to express my gratitude with those who have come before. As far as those who are in our present community, there's a number of things you can explore there. Just show up for the communities that you care about, like this community that you're part of right now. Volunteer, support, get your hands dirty. And then finally, those who are following us, seek to be a positive entry in their life book. And I'm at time, but I do want to just share one last story of heart healing and intention, and that is this. I met Pat Hayashi at a conference in Oakland. We both serve on the National Asian Pacific Americans in Higher Education Board, and Pat said to me when he first met me 10 years ago, "Kyle, I was born in Utah." After connecting the dots and a few things, I realized that Pat was born in Topaz internment camp, an hour and 10 minutes from my home that I sit in now. I studied Pat's life. I visited the Topaz Memorial, and at a conference I presented Pat with a pair of shoes and explaining to him, "Pat, I wanted to give a pair of shoes to you that honored your history." And so I started at the back of the shoe with the barracks and the layout of the Topaz internment camp with the barbed wire coming across the back of the shoe. This is part of your past. It's not who you are, but to know that you were born into these circumstances is pretty remarkable. He's the first Japanese-American vice chancellor of the University of California system. On the back of the shoe, the ages of his parents, Henry and Aiko, when they were interned in Topaz, ages 32 and 25. On the outside of the shoe, the Japanese rising and setting suns. Are you looking at the world through pessimistic or optimistic lenses? And Pat, you've been a rising sun for all of us, but as the sun rays go across the shoe, it looks like prison uniforms. There's still work to be done to make sure we give enough education and opportunity to everyone who seeks it, because that's where real freedom comes, is through education. And so I found his family's internment number. On the front of the shoe, the Japanese sakura, the cherry blossom tree representing hope, serenity, peace. And we said, Pat, we've been resting at the shade of your tree for far too long. It's now time for us to step out of our comfort zones and take on the heat of advocacy, especially for those who are underserved. Put his parents' names on the side, and then gifted him the shoes. And he put them on, and then he took them off and put them in a plastic case. I close with this story because for me, whatever effort we can do, we never arrive fully at these four lenses. They're always being developed. I am correcting myself all the time on things where I fail on these lenses, whether it's in my own home or other places. But I will say this. My mom, again, 40 years, an educator in Los Angeles, and all the proceeds from this book go to her scholarship for first-generation students who are going to be teachers. So with that, please connect with me on social. Feel free to email me, take a picture of this screen, but it's an absolute honor to share space with people who I know are lifting humanity. Thank you. Share space with people who I know are lifting humanity. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Thank you again. That helped us know better so we can do better, and I appreciate that. All right, next please join me in welcoming our Executive Director of Community Experience, Claire Alexander, for a special message.
Oh my goodness, I'm AV today. Turn around and wave at me, please. Hi. Okay, will you just send some good vibes my way and tell me everything's gonna be okay? Okay, I have so much appreciation for Bear Wade, our AV technician, who is back here running our slides, our stream, our sound tech, our lights, every day, all of it. Send vibes into the universe for Bear, who's traveling right now and he's not here. Oh my goodness, okay. All right, you don't have to look at me anymore. Get comfortable, face forward, and I'm going to invite you to have some thoughtful fun with me today, and hopefully it will be brief and enjoyable. So if you have a device around you that might have a camera on it, you can point it at the screen, and the first 50 people who scan that QR code can get into our interactive brainstorming workshop. Ooh, ah. So fun. Okay, I'm going to pause for just a moment to give us some time to get in there. You're getting a does not work? Got it. Thank you, Crystal. There is also a code at the very top of the screen if you squint really hard. All right, has anyone been turned away yet? Anybody saying too many people in the workshop? Ooh, look at all those hearts popping up on the bottom right side of the screen. Interactivity is so fun. Okay, again, I am not an AV technician, but here we go. Last chance? Woohoo! Okay. I want to do some groupthink today about the culture that we create here at Ethical Society and the exciting opportunities we have in our future. So we're going to start by a chance to share your experience. your individual, unique experience at Ethical Society. We're going to generate some ideas about other people's experience, step into their shoes. I'm going to give you a chance to interact with people around you in the real world, or if you prefer, you can reflect on your own. You don't have to interact with anyone in real life unless you choose to. We're going to do some idea refinement. You get to rank some ideas, and then we'll do some wrap up at the end. Okay, so my first question for you. There could be a range of responses. What do you remember about your very first visit to Ethical Society? That might be today. It might have been 40 years ago. You might have been around when the building was being built. But you go ahead and insert your thoughts about your first experience. On your own app, you'll see responses popping up. If it's hard to see on the screen, because that text is pretty small, we have a beautiful building. Some people walked away with those ideas. Yellow cups, if you're familiar with our coffee hour afterward. Some people felt like they were part of a community immediately, and some people felt uncertain as they walked into the building. Confusion about where to go, or feelings of acceptance. You might notice that there are many individuals' names, too. Making connections with someone was important to a lot of people. I bet classical guitar from Patrick Reyes was memorable for a lot. Wonderful. Clapping during service was my favorite. Okay, feel free to keep looking through your responses on your screen, but it might move you. As we think about one word, how do you want people to feel when they come to Ethical Society? You might see a word up on the screen and you want to agree with that word. You can type that into your own phone as well. You have unlimited entries. We'll give you about 10 more seconds on this one. If there are any words you didn't get to see, you can check them out in this week's connection as we move on to the next slide. I'm going to give you some time to either reflect individually or discuss with a friend or a neighbor, what can we do as a community to nurture this environment? What can we do to create the space that we want to offer others? I'll give you 90 seconds to think on your own or discuss with a neighbor. 30 seconds left. All right, if you take a look at the screen, we have a new question. While Bear and I were troubleshooting earlier this week, he put in his own responses. But what's one idea that could help facilitate a positive experience for our visitors and our established members? How do we make this a place we want to be? Go ahead and insert your own ideas. Food. Just a few more seconds on that. Yes. I see food echoed multiple times. To help us think about the future, we're introducing a membership pipeline that is planned and intentional. Developing ideas that are already here and introducing expansions of those that contain a welcome team, a membership team, dignity and belonging, and lay leadership development. I want to introduce you to think about service and opportunity that we have here at Ethical Society. We need people to greet a platform. We need people at our visitors connect table downstairs during coffee hour. We need external tabling at events like Tower Grove Pride and Racial Equity Summit that are coming up in the next couple of months. And we want to introduce mentorship programs where we're integrating members into our society and offering them chances to get involved in ways that are meaningful to them. So you get to rank. We have 4 options, and you're going to rank the one that you think is the most exciting and the one that you think is the least exciting to you personally. You go ahead and rank those from first to fourth. It looks like we have a lot of members who want to make relationships with new members. That's exciting. I would have put money on greeting at platform being the least ranked. I'm surprised event tabling hasn't popped up more. Going out and talking about Ethical Society in the community. 10 seconds left. We are settled. All right, final steps. Check out your weekly connection emails. I'm going to give you updates on membership pipeline as it develops. This is an ongoing draft experience that we are building weekly. If you have thoughts about the pipeline, which you can see in your weekly connection from the last 2 weeks, you can send that feedback to me, Alexander at Ethical Society or ethicalstl.org. This QR code is new. There's a Google form. It's so brief. I want you to imagine the opportunity you ranked at the top. What if you just gave a couple hours every 6 months, or maybe 1 hour every month? Consider it. Scan that QR code. Tell us which one is the most interesting to you, and we'll just send some volunteer information here. No commitment commitment required. Thank you so much for having fun with me today. Thank a neighbor that you got to discuss with, or thank yourself. Woohoo!
Thank you so much, Claire. The Welcome Team will now take up a collection to support the work of the Ethical Society. While many in our community give online or through their annual pledge, we want to offer special thanks to those who give through our weekly collection baskets. Every contribution of any size helps sustain our programs, our people, and our shared mission. If you'd like to give today, you can use the QR code on the screen behind me or place a donation in the baskets being passed around. You can also donate anytime at ethicalstl.org/donate. If you're visiting today or interested in learning more about membership, we invite you to stop by the Visitors Connect table downstairs after platform. We'd love to meet you. All right, now for our announcements. Kudos to Holly Brubaker and the team of volunteers that produced Summer Solstice Celebration that took place on Friday, June 20th. A little bonfire and graveyard of the gods through the woods, which was really cool. The 50 intergenerational attendees ranging in age from 2 to 75 took advantage of the opportunity to deepen social connections while enjoying. And also, thank you to the 40 volunteers who came and packed 1,000 emergency contraception to save their sex supplements this morning in the forum. We love that you put your efforts into action with us. And finally, please join us in the foyer at 12:30 for our artist reception. Meet the artists and enjoy coffee with us. We'd love to help you stay connected to what's happening at the Ethical Society of St. Louis. You can use the QR code on the screen to sign up for our weekly newsletter. Check out the Friends of the Ethical Society Facebook group, or reach out to the relevant staff member or community leader by email. We also have a Discord server, and if you'd like to know more about that, the team at the Visitors Connect table can be connected. This is a vibrant, active community that thrives because of the time, talents, and energy of its members and friends. We hope you'll find a way to get involved that feels meaningful to you. All right. Let's welcome Patrick Rafferty back to the stage for his final musical selection.